So recently I've been thinking about the illusion of fear. And first of all, I've come to the conclusion that it is indeed an illusion. And what I mean by that is fear is something that our brains, our minds construct. Um, Most of the times, I would say 99% of the time, it is not true, right? It doesn't actually happen, but it lives within us as this very visceral kind of gut feeling of being afraid, right? Of being very afraid of something bad or something that's going to happen that we don't want to happen. And what I realized is a lot of my life was driven by fear, by the fear of, somehow not being able to do the things I wanted to do in life, by the fear of not having enough, right? By the fear of really just like hundreds of different things that are conditioned into us, right? Into me, as a child. And what I've realized breaking out of that was how much of that, if not all of that, was completely untrue. And I went through so much mental anguish trying to sort of understand that. And the reason I wanted to bring the topic up and talk about it today is I realized how much of our lives, I'm talking generally, everybody's lives, is dictated by fear, right? How much of what we do, how much of what we think, how much of what we act is dictated by being afraid of something that, number one, is an illusion, right? Isn't real. But number two, comes out of a place of just being afraid, essentially. I mean, the biggest example that I can give from my own life is, and I've talked about this multiple times, is, when I left engineering, right? When I left my engineering job, when I left my engineering education. And again, to this day, that was the most frightening experience I've ever had. And the reason is because I've had all these, beliefs, these false beliefs that I needed to become an engineer, right? To be successful in life, right? I needed to earn a, stable salary, right? So that I could, live my life, buy a house, start a family, whatever. And I realized that was a lie, right? I realized that most of my life was actually based on a lie. And it's a very confronting truth, I think, is the best word to put it. It's a very confronting truth to sort of see that and understand it. And lately I've been thinking about fear again, but from a very different sort of context, right? Because in the past, I would have allowed my life to be driven by fear, right? I would have done things out of fear. And recently I've been thinking, what if I don't need to do that? And what if I created out of a space of, I guess the opposite of fear would be, what is the opposite of fear? The opposite of fear. Let's just say the opposite of fear as a placeholder. Jung has this beautiful quote. I hope I'm not butchering it. Where your fear is, there is your task. Yes, I think I got that right. Where your fear is, there is your task. And basically what that means is whatever you're afraid of, right? Whatever is bringing up that sensation, that feeling of fear, that is the thing that you need to confront, right? And by confront, it doesn't mean jumping out of a plane, right? Unless that is your fear, then, feel free to do some skydiving. But it's to really recognize what is behind that fear and really start to question your thoughts and your beliefs and really just find the origin of it, right? Where does that even come from? And I can guarantee you, if you do the work to dig deep enough, you'll realize that fear, first of all, probably wasn't even yours, right? It probably was somebody else's, whether it's your parents, your grandparents, society, or And um, it's not real, right? It's not real. It's just a construct of your mind. It's the only way that your mind, given whatever information that it has, tries to make sense of, whatever it is that you're afraid of. And there's two things that happen when you actually do this work of introspection and confronting your fears. Number one, first of all, you face your fear, which is already very courageous. But number two, and the most important thing, is you start to understand the illusion of fear, right? Once you get past whatever you're afraid of and you've, done the thing, thought the thought, whatever it is, then you realize like, oh, why was I stressing out over this for so long? Why was I freaking out? I'm still alive, right? I'm not dead. And, it's fine. Things are okay. And that's when you really start to, I would say that if you've done that first step, then that gives you permission to start to tackle even bigger fears, right? Even hairier fears. Or, if that was the biggest fear that you dealt with, then congratulations, all your other fears are lesser in comparison, and you know that they're not real as well. I guess the point that I'm trying to get across in this video is really just challenging your beliefs and really questioning the thoughts and questioning the anxieties and the fears that you have. Because for me personally, for the longest time, again, my life was driven by fear, right? I did things out of fear. And I see that led me to a really negative sort of space. But, I'm glad that when those fears did come up and when I started to really take the first steps to kind of dispelling them, that's when my life really changed. That's when my life really started to change. And I want to give you the permission and, some frameworks around that to, really help you break out of whatever cycles of fear that you're facing right now. I think a big fear for a lot of people, and this is just me speaking from personal experience, is the fear of change, right? The fear of doing something different, but most importantly, becoming somebody different. And I think the reason why this fear is so prevalent and why it's so viscerally strong is because when you change as a person, what that means is, yes, you're learning new things about yourself. You are becoming this new person, but that also means that your old identity, part of it, if not all of it, needs to die, right, in order to make room for the new personality that is coming in. And that is a very, very, very scary thing for a lot of people, because it means that they need to let go of an identity that they formed over the course of years, over the course of decades. And that is not an easy thing to do. And I think that's why a lot of people stay stuck, is because it's easier to continue to be that same person if it means, pushing away the fact that, changing means that part of you and part of your identity needs to die. Our brains are really good at constructing illusions, right? Things that seem real, but in actuality are false, right? Are not real. And one of the things that our brain does is it constructs fear, right? Fear is just a byproduct of our brain working normally, because fear kept us alive, when we were chasing around animals and trying not to get eaten by saber-tooth tigers back in the Stone Ages. So the primary mechanism for fear is survival. But the thing is, we live in such a abundant world that the brain has not yet caught up to, change. So our brains are still operating on software that is hundreds of thousands of years old. I want to pose a challenge to you, the viewer that's watching this video. Whether it's today, or tomorrow or this week or this month or this year. I want you to do something that makes you afraid. I want you to do something that puts you in direct confrontation with your fears. And I want you to watch what this does for you. I want you to see just how much this can change your life. Because I know for me personally, when I started to confront my fears, when I stopped running away from them, that's when I made the most amount of growth in my own journey. Let me know what you're afraid of. Let me know what your biggest fears are in life in the comment section down below. I might post something of my own over there. It could be as deep as you want it to be. It can be as surface level, as superficial as you want. I'm just very curious to understand, what you're struggling with, what everyone is grappling with in their own minds. So with that, see you soon.